Hi, my name is Matt Kosterman. As of 2026, I'm a 56-year-old white guy who lives in Chicago, Illinois. Over the past 10 years, I've transformed my life from one of chronic pain, depression, and financial struggles to one of freedom, contentment, and prosperity. I mean, sure, I've been known to get a little down at times, but hey, what human design projector isn't? I started this podcast to share with the world some of the amazing humans that have assisted me in my journey. In this season, I'm talking with more people who practice so-called alternative healing modalities. Basically, this is most things outside of what we know in America as the medical industrial complex. Shit is messed up around here, what with all the conflicting incentives. So my overall intention with the permission slip is really just to introduce people to other ways of relieving their suffering beyond taking a pill for the rest of their life. In this episode of the permission slip, I sit down with Christopher Sunyata, an engineer, a Buddhist meditation teacher, and men's coach, to explore what it really means to embody grounded masculine presence. Christopher and I talk about trauma, breath work, kundalini energy, multi-orgasmic potential for men, and the profound link between sexuality and spiritual awakening. He shares how bullying, a near-death experience that he had in childhood, his parents' divorce, fatherhood, psychotherapy, psychedelics, and decades of practice shaped the man he is today. We have a great conversation about safety in the body, depth in relationships, and reclaiming your sexuality as a path of consciousness, not as performance. I hope you enjoy it. Today I am here with Christopher Sunyata. I met Christopher actually only last weekend at a beautiful retreat in
Cave Creek,
outside of Phoenix, Arizona. Cave Creek, Arizona. Yeah, Christopher is a teacher and a men's coach who's based in Boulder, Colorado. And welcome, Christopher.
It's good to be here. Good to see you again.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Good to see you too. It was a great retreat, great workshop. So we connected at the workshop. There were about 30 plus people there, and it was called Kudoshka, which is a workshop of the Deer Tribe lineage, like our North American, Native American tribe. And I had learned about this from somebody that I attended an ISTA workshop with. I previously interviewed Rich Prittis, who was one of my facilitators for the first ISTA. And he also told me about a thing called shamanic de-armoring, which I think, Christopher, you've been to that?
Yeah.
You've attended that, so I'm scheduled to attend that in a couple of months. And anyway, Christopher and I connected with this group in Cave Creek for 4 days of intensive lectures and practical things around, I guess, what would you call it? It could be called
about
tantric,
sexuality, but it was really a sweet introduction, quite a safe container. I've done a lot of other kind of programs, and both the shamanic de-armoring and this Q1. I was particularly impressed with the teachers and the way they made human sexuality just a normal, natural part of being a complete human. In some ways, it felt like grandparents teaching children about, here's your body, and here's how sex happens, and here's the parts, and everyone's got different kind of genitals, and it's kind of fun, and it's a natural part of life, and
it was, it was like a little bit like geometry, but more fun.
Yeah, I'd say it's a little more fun than geometry about there.
But in terms of the presentation, it was just very, it's great. It's very matter of fact. So I thought I had done a lot of retreats, and you have me beat. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about your story? How did, most people in the West aren't born into this kind of work.
Right.
They got to go through something. So what did you go through?
So what really started this quite a while back is I was parenting a child with some pretty profound disabilities. She had cerebral palsy and a lot of emotional dysregulation. And she actually didn't sleep through the night for like the first 10 years of her life. So through that, we found out about this amazing program in Colorado called Parents Encouraging Parents, and it was actually funded by the Colorado Department of Education. And it was teaching parents how to navigate, the school system with their child that has disabilities, how to be an advocate for them. And what that did was it kind of got me started. I became a facilitator for that. And I ran some breakout groups for men. And it was also about the same time that I got invited into a men's group, first one ever. It was kind of an offshoot of the Course in Miracles that was at this, at this Unity Church. And so that became really a lifesaver for me in many ways, just having a place to talk about how much I was holding at home. And then I was able to, pay forward with, other men, particularly that were coming to grips with some of the deepest crises they've ever experienced, frankly.
Yeah. So childhood was relatively normal, or
mine
challenging?
My childhood, I was raised Catholic. Grew up in a small rural town, kind of born in a really rough little city called Decatur, Illinois, and bullied pretty profoundly all through 12 years of Catholic school. And a lot of it, centered back on my father, who was, he was a bully himself, and ran a lot of fear through the system to keep everybody in line. And I was a pretty sensitive kid, so it left some deep marks. So a lot of, and the thing is, I didn't realize how big and strong I am. I played rugby in college. When we had to play football, I was kind of on the all-star team and stuff. I love that. But my internal view of myself was a little kink, to say the least. So,
interesting.
Years of psychotherapy. I did 10 years of Jungian analysis. We did family counseling with the kids. And then that first marriage came to an end over an affair my wife had been having for like 3 years. And it was actually after my first deep mushroom journey that my body knew that the affair had been going on. I came down from the mountain after this solo journey, and I'm like, my body knew.
You knew it knew.
Yeah. So I had looked at the phone and, kind of had to navigate that.
Right.
And then when I, met my second wife, I was, doing a lot of intensive Buddhist practice, Tonglen, kind of burning off a lot of the pain and sorrow I had. And then I was, online dating a little bit for the first time in 20 years. And I met my second wife, Carlene, who was, I didn't know at the time, she'd actually been a teaching assistant on David Data's team. So we shared some data books in our profile and, fell madly in love. And then after we've been married for a couple of years, she was like, you've read a lot of books, but you have no idea what the work is actually like in person. And that was a massive turning point. That was back in 2013. And the first workshop kind of blew me away. It really did. Like David's kind of like a yogic master, and each workshop was always different. And I remember, a deep connected breathing practice that he led that just touched on some trauma in me in ways none of the other psychotherapy or anything else had.
Or mushrooms or anything. Yeah.
No, it was in a context of a polarity intensive. But I was also getting all the feedback from these women about stuff that my body was communicating. And they were like, relax your shoulders, move your chin back. And I'm like, I am. So I connected with a guy at the workshop afterwards and started doing some specific body training to kind of fix my posture and my breath a little bit. So that was really the big beginning. And and that was Justin Patrick Pierce. He's kind of a big teacher in this realm too. And through that work, I met John Wineland. We were in a group together, along with several other guys. We started teaching back in 2015, I think, or 2014, and that kind of started it. But I still had a lot of. I wasn't too interested in being in front of an audience. I was more of an introvert. That kind of got burned out of me through really some just repetition and getting invited to teach, honestly.
Yeah. So the women with their intuition, with their feminine that you were in touch with, they were feeling into the blockages and the constrictions that you were not present to.
Yeah. And that's been like a foundational learning, is that particularly women's bodies and their awareness is so refined and intuitive that they, pick up through, I found it to be kind of through mirror neuron transmission or through reading body language, that they're detecting within men, for instance, if you're thinking a lot, or if you have fear or anxiety, like you're trying to approach them and say hi, they're picking up on that. So it's not a machoistic head game. It's like they have an insight into the very fabric of the universe in a way. And if your body isn't like completely open and communicating trust and confidence, then they pick up on that, right?
Yeah.
So it's like a corner of this work, really.
Yeah. And that was what I noticed about your presence at the workshop was it has an openness, a steady beingness and openness that I could see, that I was present to, and I watched how you interacted with some of the women, and it was impressive. But like you said, not from I don't even know all the shit that goes on online, but the how to pick up women kind of bullshit that's out there. It's not that, and I've found that in my evolution, those are the kinds of things I look for, and I'm like, okay, what's he got that I don't got, and where do I get it? Right.
Yeah. Well, it came through a lot of practice, honestly, and the other thing that I found along this way, in addition to some specific body practices and yoga, was Buddhist meditation. I teach Buddhist meditation, and that ability to relaxedly rest your awareness in your body and locate places of tension or emotional resistance, all that has direct benefit and payback kind of off the cushion. Not that you're doing those activities to get those results, but they have a very interesting side effect. The more you can rest as open, spacious awareness, the more I found, particularly feminine individuals find you more attractive and men find you more trustworthy.
Yeah.
And
yeah. I dated a woman many years ago for a brief time, but I remember we were on the outside for a walk and talking or whatever, and she's like, "Where'd you go? I'm right there." She's like, "Where'd you go?"
Right. That's exactly it.
Yeah, and I was like, because I was tick tick. I was like, I was in the future. I was in somewhere else.
Well, you're in mind space. You're thinking, versus being in the kind of eternal present moment, which is wide open and unpredictable, by the way.
Which is where some of the fear about it comes from.
Yeah.
But you also had a long and looks like a corporate career where you had to be in your mind. You said you have set many patents to your name in the medical device area.
Successful engineer in the medical device field. I'm pretty innovative. I actually brought a little bit more of kind of artistic feminine wisdom, if you will, to engineering. And so I was kind of known for creative solutions to problems we have with medical devices, or even I did a lot of robotics and automation back in the day. And I enjoyed that. I loved all the creative problem solving, but my forte was getting teams to work together and, deeply listening. So it's not your classic, macho leader kind of saying, yay, very well, we're going to do this, and everybody march.
There's the hill. Go take the hill.
Right. Matter of fact, I was like the third project manager that they hired, because other people kind of essentially quit to manage this massive update of all these products that were manufactured in Mexico, like one of the highest profit products. And it involves so many people you need to talk to, and you had to establish trust and really some integrity without it being any superiority to people, but really addressing these people as the good people they were. I mean, I made some great friends in Mexico, honestly. I was working in Tijuana and the Maquiladoras, and just the loyalty and kind of brotherly love and stuff that came from that was really illustrative. And that's why I was able to be successful. It was just...
And you were doing the work concurrently, like you had already gotten into some of the men's work.
Yeah, so that was
data work.
Yep. It was interesting as I started implementing, some of the data work, particularly meditation. I was working in the gym, kind of restructuring my body, honestly. I had a chronic closure in my upper chest. I was like emotionally protecting my heart. So I was doing all these chest opener, restructuring my body, particularly my neck. And one of the cool things about that I learned, and I pay this forward in the other work I do, is getting your body through some, whether it's intensive weightlifting or you're doing some high intensity interval training, which I found was the best, to get you into an emotionally activated state, and then practice deep relaxation and kind of dropping your parasympathetic nervous system in. So it was weightlifting with your parasympathetic nervous system, and particularly in the area of breath rate recovery. And I had a near-death experience as a child where I suffocated. I got pinned underneath an automobile and I died.
Oh, shit.
I was, kind of, it rolled backwards into a creek bed. And I had little trees in my back and car door in my chest, and it sank. And I stopped breathing. So I always had this kind of panicky relationship around breath. Swimming was a challenge for me. And so to particularly kind of go back later in life and be doing this breath rate recovery, was touching some very deep stuff. And I found, a lot of a man's power is what wounds or what kind of fears or traumas can you open through? Because people will sense that, like, you can feel the terror of not breathing, or you can feel the intensity of being abused. And if you, as someone who has that in their nervous system history, opens anyway, it's much more of a deep, powerful invitation to others, and it pulls in sort of a somatic level of trust. And so I've found that's been really useful in my work. And it's come about really just through working with a lot of individuals. I didn't understand this as it was happening, but it's demonstrated more and more. And I think it's often where people are, we're primates. And so some of the most intricately woven survival reflexes are the mirror neuron connection between a newborn infant that's totally helpless for primates and the mother. Or the primary caretaker. And when they look into that child's eyes and kind of balance their respiration with the child's, because the child feels that inside the amniotic fluid when the mother's, having them in their womb, it's very soothing and attachment nourishing. And,
presuming the mother's balanced and
right. That's what I'm saying. Right. A lot of us didn't have that, particularly if you grew up in the 60s. My mom was super people were, they were doing the best they could, right?
Of course.
That's the imprint you have. I'm seeing some, babies being born in the community here in Boulder, and like it just came from this movement mass, which was like an ecstatic dance Sunday activity, and all these babies were in little pouches on their father or their mother's bodies. And I'm like, wow, what a cool way for a human to enter this world and to feel the energy of everyone around you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
without being overwhelmed by it.
Yeah. They have these little baby-sized headphones that are kind of cool, to kind of help the kids with the music. I mean, it's really amazing. That to me is like one of those positive things. I'm like, okay, the planet, got some weird shit happening, but there's some bright spots, and particularly if you start young and someone has these healthy attachments, those might really be the people that understand and can, provide some leadership in the world going forward. And it's partly why I'm doing this work. It's more
likewise
people that can rest insecurity and feel like they can freely express their sexuality and understand where that fits into the overall life flow, the better the overall planet's going to be, you know. So it has big implications. Yeah,
because it's ultimately, as I've talked about here many times on the show, it's ultimately at the level of the nervous system, which you alluded to. Like we're primates. There's an amygdala. There's a safety that's below a safety or a not safety that's below our conscious awareness.
Right.
That is dictating what we do. And so it sounds like your work is getting at that.
It is. And particularly, you know, when I met my second wife, I mean, she was an airline captain and she ran a women's circle for like over a decade. And there were these amazing, like, gorgeous, powerful women in it. And they were having real issues finding men to meet them. And I think this is endemic of kind of what's happening nowadays, you know, with women getting more of the professional degrees, more of the PhDs. So they're smart, they're powerful, and they still, most of them are still relatively heterosexual. We're all on a spectrum, but they would like to have a man that would meet them and be able to be deeper than them or take them deeper than they go themselves. That's getting harder and harder to find. It really is. And that's part of what motivated me was, like, if I could learn this stuff, I can transmit it. You know, the way I learned it, though, was in a funky tantric lineage where they didn't explicitly describe what was happening. You were kind of thrown into a very intense situation, much more intense than what we did in the Qs. And you had to kind of find a way to navigate your way through it.
Okay.
And it was much more confrontational and edgy, in my experience, even though most of it was done fully clothed.
Okay.
Versus, you know, maybe more of the Tantra stuff that we were doing in the Q, where nudity was welcome and, you know, you always had control and autonomy over that. The other work, you know, that I experienced with David Deida was more emotionally challenging and confronting. Really edgy stuff sometimes.
Edgy stuff. And head beyond the mushroom experience that you have. I mean, my background is in the last 8 years with a lot of psychedelics, and so I'm always curious about what kind of work, because I feel like it's prepped me for a lot of that.
Yeah,
a lot of those things like Ista and Kudoshka have been probably easier than they otherwise would have been without having faced some crazy shit in altered states. Yeah. So I'm just curious if you worked with medicines beyond the mushrooms. And
I have. I've had a fairly extensive practice background with that. I've done a lot of it self-guided and self-facilitated, but within intentional kind of yogic practice containers. So, you know, we'd set aside a whole day usually for the practice. And then, you know, there's some amazing ways that you can weave sexual energy into substances, plant medicines. And particularly because the, you know, great sex often happens when the mind starts disengaging and you're in a flow state, right? You're in a place of openness, and your heart, your body, your genitals are kind of in a bliss state, and they can be forever opened even wider. I've found with certain plant medicines that as an adjunct leaves lasting openness that remains afterwards. And this happens also with other types of pranayama breath work or contemplative practice. My Buddhist meditation teacher, Will Johnson, has kind of come out of the closet of late and is an advocate for microdosing, say, cannabis or psychedelics in conjunction with really high-level Buddhist practice. And what we're finding is that there's continual states of openness and relaxing into safety in this vast spaciousness that become accessible. And it leaves a residual understanding in the mind and in the consciousness. Perhaps
it's almost
trust in reality itself.
Sure. Yeah, I can see that. It's almost like training wheels, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I've done a lot of work with 5-MeO DMT.
Ooh, that's one of my favorites, and it's really powerful. That's
you and me
death,
both.
basically. You're doing 5-MeO DMT, you're effectively doing a practice with death, and there's ways to, particularly within the Buddhist tradition, to contemplate death and to recognize some of those states are analogous to when consciousness is free from physical form.
Right. Yeah, that's the experience.
Powa, for instance, is
what is it?
The Tibetan practice of Powa is about practicing actually leaving the body.
Okay.
And there's some continual tantric practice that I was taught that involves circulating energy through the body, particularly sexual energy, that mirrors the same pathways that happen during, say, Powa practice when one leaves the body. And that can also be done in a relational context. You could do this as a partner practice.
Oh, beautiful.
And it's very potent, you know.
Yeah, I had the thought when John and Amara were talking about sort of the levels of orgasm, I think it was like the sort of 1 through 4,
right?
That the 5-MeO stuff, if not having achieved that the levels of orgasm that they described, but I thought, wow, I bet it's not dissimilar from some of the experiences I've had with that medicine, where you're merging.
Yeah.
You're going back home, basically.
Yeah. Particularly like where we started this conversation about, I was learning by having women give feedback on what they're experiencing in my body. In some of the tantric partner practices that I teach, whoever's holding the masculine pole, could be man or woman, is resting as free, open consciousness. And that consciousness can be bodily linked to your partner. So whoever's playing the feminine then gets to flow with the currents of the energy. And
beautiful.
That could even lead up to something like a 5-MeO experience could be done as a partner practice.
Wow.
2 people are in intimate contact during that. They don't have to be physically sexual, but the 2 can kind of pop into that.
Into that space.
That's what it feels like. The bliss.
Yeah.
And also there's a potential for, because sometimes those rides can be a little wild and maybe a little terrifying, but you could feel someone with you, kind of like you would feel that someone is having contact and is co-experiencing something with you. Pretty amazing. And a lot of other medicines kind of open into that, but the 5-MeO is definitely the most potent. I didn't realize you'd done a lot of work with that. So
all the medicines have been, but that's been really the most, I call it productive, for sort of a 3D term. But I've got a pen that allows like a low dose meditative thing. I've worked with just a little bit. I want somebody to sit for me so I can see where the edge of it is.
Yeah.
I don't quite know where it is, and I don't want to.
No, that would be good to have someone with you on that. But that is.
Yeah.
But it's. Yeah, we could go down a whole other path on that. I mean, a lot of this practice, whether it's the deep sexual practice or meditative practice, in some ways is a preparation for death. And opening as, well, beingness doesn't end with life. I mean, I've had contact with people and I've been present at people's death. It's a profound truth that there's something that exists with a continuity that isn't necessarily just the electrical activity within the brain. It's still present after the brain ceased to function.
I've interviewed several conscious channels. The latest was Paul Selig, was an episode. It just hit actually Friday, and he's got non-physical beings that are pushing information through his through his body as the radio. He calls himself. I'm a radio. I'm a stenographer.
I mean, there's a lot of that. I was a lot of that. fan of the early Seth material.
Yeah, yeah.
And really an amazing story is the Helen Schuckman from The Course in Miracles, that she,
of course,
just the personal story of how she came to that information, and it came out in longhand. I mean, you can actually go look at the actual longhand notes.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal how that came through.
Yeah, I mean, Paul has channeled, I think his 13th book gets released in a week, and all of them without any editing other than a word change here and there.
Wow.
It's amazing. And to your point about the continuity of consciousness, that was probably the key takeaway from the 5-MeO experiences is that, this never started and it's never ending. Like I just have a knowingness of that I could read all the books in the world, and I don't think I would get that knowingness in my body.
Yeah. And I studied various esoteric systems, but both like the Buddhist tradition and a lot of the Shaivite tradition all point toward the seat of consciousness being the heart. Like it's actually the portal way to this life that is you, that has existed maybe in other forms. And I find that both contemplative practice and particularly sexual practice opens that up. And, you mentioned they talked about, maybe 4 levels of orgasm in the Kudoshka. There's orders of magnitude more. And that's my hope that I can help people access that. It's often limited by the stability of whoever's holding the masculine pole at the time to be able to remain open and awake and not kind of fall into the bliss. Like you keep opening from the heart is how I experience it. And
interesting.
You're in a coupled, it's like one of these hydrogen fusion reactors. Once you hit the critical point, it really just starts flowing. And it's just say I've experienced stuff that most people wouldn't think is possible, like orgasm levels, and particularly continuous rolling orgasms can last for hours.
For the male.
And the female,
and the female, but that's sort of a given in our society. Oh, women can have multiple orgasms and men can't. So
you can, and there's also there's almost a form of like loving domination, where if you're inside her as consciousness, all of her orgasms are your orgasms too. Like you're surfing them, not greedily taking them, but you're much like a good surfer. You can kind of cut back and across the face of it and keep pumping the energy for the sake of both of you. It's very exhilarating. And to me, it kind of blurs into spiritual practice. You might find yourself just like doing Buddhist metta prayer. May all beings be happy. I don't know how many times that's kind of come through me. I'm like, this is just overwhelmingly bliss. Like pray that the whole planet gets this. It's like it's too big for just one being to even experience.
To experience.
Yeah.
It is the overflowingness.
Yeah. And that heart generosity is something that I think depth of character and men can embody. We don't see a lot of worldly examples of it right now.
Yeah. And to your, I just go back to the frustration with, the system, right? Like it's got to shut off from the medicines. It's got to shut off from the sexuality. And, John and Amara talked about that. If you can cut off access to sexual energy in people, you can control them.
Absolutely. That's been happening through, I would say, majority of the patriarchal type religions.
Yeah.
There is, I would say within Tibetan tradition, there's a healthier understanding of the importance of sexuality. And there's even like one of their famous saints in Tibet is Drukpa Kluni. And he was the monk who went around with this big cock and had sex with everyone and would enlighten them with his cock, you know. So it was really kind of humorous, but also he's like a folk hero. Like everyone would know who he is, like Santa Claus. Like literally. So you have to check it out. Yeah, it's really cool. And just imagine the culture that way. And you know, there's a good book by Dr. Nita Ing, I think, on Kama Mudra, which is kind of the Buddhist tantric sexual practice, where you know, you're doing some internal generation of visualizing yourself as a sacred deity while having sex. So you're expanding and viewing yourself as not just me in this body in intercourse for the sake of me feeling good and getting off. It's that, but you keep opening and imagining or visualizing yourself as a beneficent deity. I mean, she could be white Tara, or you could be the wrathful deities too. You could be of the image of Vajrakalaya. There's two gods are fucking and they're just ripping the hell out of everything and they're on fire.
On fire. And it was I read a beautiful somebody's experience of Kali showing up, of just blackness, just infinite blackness, but a presence, the destroyer but creator. So yeah, I just got like a whole bunch of energy going through me on that one.
We all have these archetypes in our human history, and we can, during sexual play, you can access them, and sometimes they'll spontaneously come through. And I've really enjoyed that with my partner, of being able to play and open through some of these different forms that have, you know, they're very symbolic. There's a reason they exist, is that they're different forms of love or different forms of awareness or wakefulness. And they're part of our human birthright, but they take on mythic proportions sometimes when plant medicines or sexual energy are running, or both. And it can give us insight into really the depth of power that who and what we are. And
well, I mean, I imagine you're tapping in. At some point, we're tapping into Kundalini energy, which I've discussed on the show before.
Yeah.
You know, that's the ultimate reservoir.
Well, you're tapping into, I think, so within, you know, some of the yogic systems, they talk about the gross body. The subtle body is often where the energy is arising. That's often where Kundalini is happening. And there's a lot of different traditions that will work with ways you can access that energy. Sexuality is one of the very powerful ways. Contemplative practice, pranayama practice. And then you get into the causal body, which is these kind of three layers that are in the Buddhist system of, you know, the Dharmakaya, Nirmanakaya, and Sambhogakaya. They seem to be reflecting something that the ancient researchers of consciousness and of yoga kept noticing. You know, the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali talk explicitly about this, and there's kind of strange psychic powers in cities that start arising. I found that those are often, they're interesting, but they're more distractions and kind of just keep opening as something keeps unwinding, and you end up really as a kind of find out why you were born. I mean, what is the purpose of being in a body? What's the purpose of love? What's the purpose of sex? Those deep questions can't be answered by words. They often sound like a Zen koan. And in many ways they are, but the answer abides within the knowingness of the heart, kind of like the way you know. The reality of some of those 5 MEO states are more real than the state of us even talking together on this podcast. There's a certitude about being. There's a certitude about death that I find 5 MEO brings in particular. And there's a certitude about love and the ongoing creation and death and rebirth that happens through sex over and over again, particularly if it's done, you know, from a place of this vast openness. And
yeah.
And that's where the Kundalini really starts flowing often, is when we're connecting it with other, and you get into this kind of play that can happen. I mean, I experienced that in the queue with people I'd never met before. We just had, consent and some trust. I mean, we really weren't even getting involved with our genitals, but there was so much energy running.
Yeah.
It was healing and life affirming, and people have been, we have the online thread that you're on. I mean, people have been writing a great opening.
It's beautiful.
Integrating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very beautiful. And, I think the other being that comes to mind around all this is Osho.
Yeah.
The teacher. I remember seeing the Wild Wild Country movie years ago before I was into any of this stuff. And I thought, oh my God, that man is, crazy, insane, whatever. But he's the trickster, brings the sexual energy into the meditations, and realizing that this world that we live in needs a different access. I've sat a 10-day Vipassana retreat. I've forced myself to sit and be silent for 10 days, but not everybody has the time nor inclination to do that.
Right.
So it sounds like your practices are ways, not a shortcut, but it's a different, you're going in through a different energy.
I do use like meditation. I'll use dyad koans, for instance,
Okay.
I've learned a lot from people I've studied with and who I practiced. Will Johnson, honestly, my lovely Buddhist meditation teacher in Costa Rica in the 70s. And he originally met Rajneesh before he was going by Osho, and had some interactions with him and a little bit of experience in that community before he got kind of really crazy. But there was something really true happening with this Kundalini energy that was being released, in the Osho style of meditation, a lot of movement, a lot of challenge. He fell into a profound eye-gazing practice with a friend of his. It wasn't sexual. It was just someone he had met, and they started just having periods of time where they would gaze into each other's eyes. And that led to him becoming a pretty well-known Rumi scholar. So Will Johnson has studied that. And his big learning he came away from was that Shams and Rumi, there's a lot of historical evidence that they were doing eye-gazing practice. Like when Rumi met Shams, he was gobsmacked by someone who obviously was more connected to the divine than he was. And he saw it when he looked into his eyes. And they went into a closed room and just hung out together, gazing into each other's eyes. So Will had run eye-gazing workshops for like 2 decades. Before this stuff was like really popular, anyone knew about it. But he hated the guru trip and people kind of falling in love with him and wanting to deify him. He was like, no, it's about the spiritual friends. You are awakening a divine within each other. It's not about one special being. He's a little more practiced at it, and he can access a deeper state. But we all have this infinity within. And so that's the entrance point of a lot of the David Data practices. There's a lot of eye-gazing. And I use that, whether you're teaching, same sex, it doesn't have to become sexual, but it's pretty easy to start feeling that attractiveness and that arc of sexual polarity. And that can activate the Kundalini and open those channels a lot faster than just, say, a solo practice. Doesn't have to be. A lot of people have Kundalini awakening solo, but when you're kind of playing the God and Goddess role, it's wired into our physiology, and you can clean out a lot of blockages really fast, and that's the foundation path to really some of these extreme, wide open sexual states and orgasmic potential. It's more from the Kundalini energy flowing, along with physical embodiment practice and learning how to start addressing. Because once the Kundalini starts flowing, you'll often people will feel physical pain in their body, or they'll have different places where it feels like kinked or blocked, and it can get physically painful.
And it's powerful stuff.
Yeah, so often I've found that during sex, it's maybe there's intercourse going on, but I'm using my hands, massage, and energetic intuition to help free and open the body more than I'm focusing on any thrusting or movement.
Sure.
It's definitely much more about attuning to how it's shown in the totality of the body, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, my first 5-MeO experience was a light dose, and I felt it go down my spine, and I was fairly blocked in this thoracic area.
Yep.
Physically and energetically. And it literally took a left turn.
Wow.
Like I felt the energy drop down. It just turned. It was wild.
Yeah.
It was very wild. But the eye gazing stuff is also, I mean, I'll second the fact that it's very powerful. I haven't done these extensive practices, but I've done practices. I've also done just mirror work where I'm gazing into my own eyes for a long time.
Right.
Yeah. And things start getting a little weird.
Yeah.
In a good way.
Yeah. No, they do. And
yeah.
There was Charles Bremer was like, he was really close to L. Ron Hubbard when that stuff got started. He left without having the mafia come after him and went in a whole direction. Like, how can I help people? And he founded the Enlightenment Intensive, which is pretty much based on Zen koans. And they used to do it for like a month at a time. And they eventually got it down to a week and then a weekend kind of thing. And one of his closest students, Zigorov Slavinsky, published quite a few books on this. And just the power of doing eye gazing practice while you're doing a koan of one in the affirmative and one in the inverse, like feel into what love is here and now.
Okay.
And then feel into what love is not here and now. And taking turns going back and forth for like 45 minutes, pretty reliably can get from 30 to maybe 50% of the people in a container to start having their first experience of Satori, just like wide open, like, wow, I can't even talk, like, this is love. And in my men's retreats, I'll use this as like an introductory process, because once you've had a taste of that, then through subsequent pointing out instruction, you can remind people, remember that. Because until you've tasted it, you don't have a vocabulary for it. It's beyond words.
Yep.
But it's a tacit experience of connection to everything and vast openness, usually a non-thinking state, connected to love. And when you remember how to remember that, you're kind of back in your inherent nature of openness. And then you can start adding in more challenge, if you will, or more complications. And more people can remember to access that while they may have been emotionally triggered, or maybe they're even experiencing physical intensity. To be able to hold that presence as I am this ever-present open witness. It's impersonal. It's kind of the source of consciousness. Probably what you've tasted in 5-MeO.
For sure.
That becomes kind of the foundation where we can do a lot of this sexual polarity work, relational work, or, kind of unwinding kinks, anxieties, pain we've got from the past, and it's all based on starting with like a belonging and inherent safety in your own body. So I've got a men's program starting on Tuesday, and that's the first practice that we do, is I really ground it in. You have to be taught or reminded what it's like to be physically okay and safe in your own body, because most of us are just racing too fast in our thoughts or on our devices. And until you can consciously, intentionally access that under times of stress or times of distraction and just remember it, you're often just going to be kind of chasing your thoughts and kind of lost in that mental anguish space. But if you can remember to come back and ground in the body, and this is often, root chakra, second chakra kind of presence, but it's a tacit experience. It's a remembering. It's not a mental doing. It's actually kind of a surrendering to what is,
or a learning. Right? We already know. There's a knowingness. Yeah. So, and you brought up your men's retreat. My next question was going to be, so, how do you work with people, and what sorts of, men come and work with you? And
my specialty is particularly if guys want to be able to meet a powerful woman. You want to be able to stay in the ring. It's not just a lot of what Mantak Chia teaches around Taoist sexuality. I view that as sort of the 101 class. It gets your foot in the door. It gives you an idea of what's possible. But there's a whole lot of breath and muscle manipulations that you're doing to maybe experience your first non-ejaculative orgasm. That's done through stress and effort. It's more akin to like this master Tai Chi teacher I've studied with. Emotions look big at first, but then they become more and more subtle, more and more internal. And you can do it from a state of deep relaxation. And that's really where a lot of this hyperorgasmic potential that men have, where they can meet their partners, men or women, and be able to invite them to go deeper than they could possibly by themselves, or either one of you by yourself. So there's something magical that happens within that shared space of trust that you can navigate into some outrageously blissful and pleasurable states. They tend to be very emotionally connecting, though. It's not something I've seen successfully done in a casual sex situation. It tends to involve the heart and trust. There's ways to maybe set up a container around that, but it's people that want to find, hey, you got this body, let's find out what it's possible in this lifetime, pleasure and openness, before the damn thing's expired and doesn't work.
What's under the hood?
Yeah, so that's a lot of what I'm doing. And then my specialty is also navigating, helping people when they're going through times of crisis. So like I said, parenting a child with disabilities, going through your own experience with disability. I've got clients that are working with, degenerative conditions. How do you continue showing up in life? How to navigate a divorce or a breakup and do so where it leaves you both better. And maybe you don't end up losing a month or a year or two of your life in that. How can you consciously navigate crises?
Or even beyond the month or the year or whatever you might lose in the immediate. I did an episode with my former wife of 15 years where, we talked, we've been great friends throughout our divorce, which is now 16 years old. Because why not? Life's too fucking short to.
No, seriously.
But you need the tools. I didn't have the tools. I had to go get the tools. I Landmark. I did all these, things to find the tools to navigate that. So it sounds like you've got some really powerful.
Yeah, I've done Landmark too. I've done Buddhist meditation. I'm a restorative yoga teacher. I've got teacher certified in Avita yoga. I found a lot of beautiful power in that. So I draw upon, a lot of different areas, but it has a cohesiveness when I work with people. So I've got a really good contact form where I ask leading questions like, what is the one thing you would most want to change in your life that would have you feel fulfilled? And it's different for each person, man or woman, right? But when you really contemplate those, that ends up in a place of often vulnerable honesty about where our edge is, where we feel comfortable, where we're growing. And that's the very place where I can establish trust with clients and really aid and assist them. And I keep finding over and over that our limits are often mostly mental and psychological. I'm not a psychiatrist, but I see those as expressions through our body and through limits in our breath or our capacity to run sensation through us. And you can kind of coax that back into a deeper state of safety and then abundant gifting.
Yeah, and I was going to circle back around to, you talked about, we talked about these, amazing, ecstatic, orgasmic states that you can have an intimate partner. What's the impact then? Because it doesn't just stop in the bedroom.
No.
Like the impact of this energy moving through one.
Well,
what are some of the things that you see then people go on to do and manifest and create in their lives by accessing this energy?
Yeah. Well, if you're a parent, one of the really important things is you're always modeling for your children what's possible. And if you, that's one of the bigger areas, is the greatest gift you could pay forward is healing yourself and standing in your own power. And particularly if you're with an intimate partner raising children, how do you model this healthy, open ownership of your human nature and your sexual nature within a way that's inspiring them and creating a future for them? And that's really a key area. And I also work with individuals that are working to maybe reestablish safety in their own body or discover what's possible pleasure-wise, or maybe they want to go a little deeper. They've been doing a lot of shallow dating and they'd like to actually meet someone. I've helped people find their partners. So it's different with each one, but I'm always bringing people back to the root of being and how they can own what's most important for them. And each, like in David Deda's work, they talk about this purpose for men in particular. The masculine beings, what do you need to accomplish or experience before you die so you can die fully given, fully complete? That's a really key question. And it's changing in the world today, particularly, say, if you've got maybe your wife's a senator, or you've got
or CEO, or
and
high-powered lawyer.
What are you adding? That's David Deda's new book coming out, which is going to be published here soon, The Man of Zero. He's kind of, I think, feeling into the societal shifts, and he's kind of been on the leading edge of it. So, The Way of Superior Man came out almost 30 years ago. And I remember it brought into my men's group, and what the hell, where'd this come from?
Yeah.
If I'd had that earlier, I think my first marriage would have turned out very differently. As it was, it came toward the end of it. But it was a very significant book and change. So within my own work too, what I'm finishing the book up is a set of yogic indoctrination. So how men can really understand what the potential of their body is, and their mind, when their mind is able to be quiet and be in service of something else, because it's absolutely unnecessary to be thinking all the time. Few people have that concept. And it's not like you got to be all macho and go on a lot of Vipassana retreats. There's ways to realize that your core nature is not that voice inside your head. Matter of fact, the more that voice is running inside your head, the less there's space for anyone else.
Yeah.
So there's ways to give you longer and longer periods of being able to stay in this. It's why we love falling in love. Often the voice in your head shuts up and you're in the company of someone you're basking. Well, often it's a side effect of experiencing the openness inside, and they've kind of pulled you out of your head game that you usually do.
The head game.
Yeah, and you're not looking at your phone as much as you used to. I mean, just those shifts are giving you back to yourself. To do that intentionally and consciously is quite different. And there's ways to get tacit experiences of this. So that's what I've been writing and working on for the last 10 years. I've got a sequence, particularly for men's bodies, that you can go through to establish that both safety and freedom in your own body, and then understand how the sexual energy works through you. So if you want to master multi-orgasmic potential, it's like a lifelong path to do that. There's some initiatory practices, but more and more, it's more about relaxing and kind of dilating open your awareness during times of peaking energy. And as you become more sensitive to the flows of energy in your own body, guess what? You develop the capacity to track the energy flows and blockages in others, and particularly your intimate partner. So it's not like you're trying to have energetic sex. You just start gaining access into reality, and that whole subtle body where Kundalini energy flows, you'll be able to detect that. And because you love that person, you'll want that to be flowing in them, not like they need some massive yogic achievement, but like it'll feel like pain in your body, that they're cramped, and you don't have to talk them through it. You can actually influence them. And a lot of it's done through touch. A lot of it's through invitation, and a lot of it's through sexual practice together that'll kind of open that. And the bliss states that are possible and the orgasms that are possible are they're off the chart. I mean, there's some teachers teaching some of this, and I think part of the big issue too is that there's really, I like women like Kim Amani or other women that are teaching women about their multi-orgasmic potential, and and there's a whole pathway that goes from dissipative orgasms, where once you have one or two, you're like, okay, I'm done. The regenerative ones where you're like, that was good, but don't you dare stop. And that's where these states can go for hours. You're like, it just keeps getting better. Like, what the hell?
Better and better.
And that's where you,
and it's, and I think it's correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not done in the typical masculine chasing. Like, you're not chasing it. You're allowing it, you're opening to it, you're removing the blockages, and that's the teachings and the trainings.
Yeah. You're the stable invitation. You keep like, the feminine is essentially more. I mean, that's part of what drives a lot of guys nuts, is like, I already did something. I mean, you want more? Like, well, of course, that's the whole
I got you a new car.
But if you can like rest into it and go, oh yeah, that's her. She's always wanting more. And you know that's kind of her nature. You're not fighting with her. You're actually almost calling her to just keep surrendering open, and you've got her. You're worshiping her. You're evoking her to fall deeper than she's ever surrendered. And there's
and accessing an energy source that you aren't normally accessing through the typical male orgasmic process of, oh, I'm done. Okay, done. Now I got to turn over and rest for 15 minutes.
I still have ejaculative orgasms, but it's often like, it was nice, but maybe it brought something to a close for a little bit. It was necessary, and my partner likes feeling that. But there's also I like the continuity of this deep interchange of energy that's happening, and it doesn't have to come to an end. And there really is no necessity for it. I mean, there's times where I've been so connected to my partner that I would have to go into like deep sleep, because from where I was in openness, their body was just continuously coming, and they're going to burn out or not be able to go to sleep. So you're like, I've got to kind of go to nothingness just so that
land the plane,
so we could go there. But these are, when you get that energy connection. I mean, and it was one of the things that David Data said, one of the first workshops. He said, well, imagine, you're on your deathbed, and, you've got the capacity to gift your partner an orgasm from across the room without touching them. I mean, that'd be kind of nice to be on your deathbed and kind of all you can do is move your pinky and she's smiling at you. I mean, it's a nice fantasy, but there's some potential truth to that.
Sure.
And, life's really short, so why not find out what these bodies and these minds are capable of? It really is. I mean, people are doing all kinds of other extreme diets and extreme yoga programs. I just don't see as many people applying themselves at the frontiers of consciousness in a relational manner. So that's a lot of the cornerstone of this work. It's not, you can do a lot of solo practice, but if it falls apart when you have, a beautiful naked woman in front of you, then that's the next level of your practice to remain open as that deep, free consciousness, no matter what's arising. And to gift under all those circumstances. And that's why it was in the highest inner tantrum, like the Vajrayana system, was that, you think you're stable and open. Try throwing in a woman that's going to be criticizing you and giving you feedback about, maybe she's even telling you your dick's small or something. If you could stay without collapsing and laugh at all that.
Can you stay present?
Because she will challenge you. That's her nature. She wants to feel the depth of your stability and your unwavering love, no matter what comes up. It's not the content. It's the heart of the matter.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, and that's better expressed through experience than words.
Yeah,
and those are the type of experiences that really bond couples together, and give you a lot of deep meaning. Like we're riding the backside of that cue. Everyone's still integrating and receiving the gift that came from that, and it was beautiful how they set that container up. I thought.
Oh, it was gorgeous, and especially in I've attended a couple of ISTA retreats, which are fabulous, and I really love them. There weren't as many. There was a higher proportion of coupled people at the Kedoshka, and so it was really interesting to watch the relationships modeled in both. I mean, we had a couple. In a couple cases, they were ready to call it quits, and they circled back around. But then to really watch sort of the divine masculine and the divine feminine be called out in our presence, I thought was really, really beautiful. Yeah. Beautiful work. It's like if everybody could take this 4-day workshop, what a world we'd have.
Yeah. I do co-ed workshops, and I also do men's retreats. And in co-ed workshops, they're clothed. There's just no touching of breasts, buttocks, or genitals. You can still have like incredibly intense interactions and experiences. And I've regularly had people say, while they were clothed, it was like the best sex they'd ever had. So the energetic portion is huge. And also the heart portion, right? Where someone is tracking and meeting you. On this men's program I've included in it a men's retreat where I've got trained female tantrikas coming in to kind of test and provide feedback for men, kind of like we were talking about in here, but at an advanced level, particularly if someone's been studying this for a while. We really grow from not competition, but from feedback. And
a challenge too. You grow through challenge, right?
Challenge.
Yeah. If you're comfortable, you ain't growing.
Yeah. So that's kind of unique, and I'm excited about that. That's coming up in April.
That looks cool. I'm checking that on my schedule. I got a bunch of stuff going on in April. The unwinding or the de-armoring being one of them. So
that's a 2-week ride, man. You'll be pretty full with that one. That's.
I think so.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to jump right away into something else, but it was really healing for me and myself on that. Yeah.
The de-armoring.
Yeah.
And you'll be doing more of these. You run this men's thing regularly.
And I do
workshops and retreats.
Private one-on-one coaching as well.
Okay.
And after it was really an honor meeting. I'd known John. He did the de-armoring. But Amara is kind of she's a real pillar in the tantric community.
She's the OG.
She is OG, and it was such an honor to study with her. And I've decided to do some more one-on-one work with her after this.
Oh, beautiful.
It's just for someone who has such depth of it, I really cherished her sweetness and sort of availability and willingness to just make this seem normal and wholesome in an interesting way, and obviously her partnership with her partner was really beautiful, how they can kind of play and be supportive of everyone. You really get to where sexuality can be a life force that powers the whole rest of your life, and it's not like sequestered off as a separate thing you don't talk about or access, but it's just integral to who you are, and it's playful and it's wholesome,
If we could just get the fucking shame out of it, and it can be so deep.
Yeah, that's one of the things
layers
Jews are really good about, I think, and the shamanic armoring really does do that.
Yeah, it sounds like
my experience was like it's how ideally parents would have taught adolescents about sex, and similar thing to stories I've heard about the Tibetans of how they would introduce their children and get them together intentionally when they're kind of in their teens and such, and explain this is what this energy is, and it's really good and it's wholesome, and here's how you do contraception and stuff too, and
right,
but it certainly wasn't the introduction I had. It was the fear.
The Catholic
Church.
You
really interested in it, but don't you dare be using contraceptives. Like, what kind of conflicting message was that?
Crazy.
But it led to a lot of unplanned pregnancy, and it definitely swelled the ranks of Catholicism. It was kind of weird. I mean,
yeah. I looked at it through that lens before, but sure, it would, right?
It does. It like literally, like, just.
You introduce it and you make it forbidden, just like sex in general before marriage, and then you make the way to the contraception forbidden. Oh my God, what a potent way to ensure you're going to have a lot of babies.
It's been quite effective.
Hence the 8, 10, 12, child Catholic families. Like, really, you guys didn't figure out how this works?
I know. And everyone is, trying to advance the ball down the court with their life, right? So I have a lot of compassion and understanding. It's just, we're waking up, and I think we're being a lot more intentional, and we're seeing other types of living situations and cultures that were much more accepting of people's different type of sexual attractions to, the whole sexual attraction spectrum was pretty much present in the indigenous cultures of this country of North America before,
along with gender.
Yep. So like where the rigidity and what's okay, what's not okay was pretty much a patriarchal control tool. And if you look at it, the people in power sure as hell weren't playing by the rules. They were just trying to use guilt and shame to keep everyone else in bay. But the elites have always, played and done what they wanted and went off to Epstein's Island. It's a shame.
Right. Yeah. Speaking of islands, have you heard of? There's this book called The Primordial Code. Have you heard of this? My friend told me it's a beautiful book. It's a fictional account of a place, of an island where the indigenous traditions have been maintained for centuries, and the book is about a male and a female that are brought in this initiatory process to see if they want to learn these ways. And it goes to your talking about like the kids and the ecstatic dance, the babies and and the way the birth process works and the initiation of the children into sexuality. It's a very compelling story. Again, fictional account that was.
It's offering hope. I think we need more stories like that kind of inspire ideas, because just the whole thing around childbirth. I've had a lot of friends who've had amazing ecstatic birth experiences. It's also great to have modern medicine there when you need it, but the process itself is all of how we've gotten here. But the integrating it with the sensuality, the community, the sexual nature of it. I've heard more and more women are actually having orgasmic birth.
I've heard of that. That as well.
Not to shame anyone or put as a goal or something to have, performing, but it is part of our nature as we open through sensation, through emotion. If we start doing that yoga beforehand, there's potential that it, does cross over during times of intense life crises, like birth is one of them, but also
death.
I was at a men's retreat and I dislocated my elbow.
Ooh.
Arm wrestling with someone much younger than me. It was kind of stupid, but the ulnar nerve is not made to stretch. It was quite literally one of the most painful experiences of my life. And we were in the backcountry of Zion, so it took hours to where we could even get to, hospital. And the yogic practice made it possible. Like the stuff I'd done through sexual yoga, I could breathe through it. Okay. And I had them put on some speed metal. I was just and we're just raging, just roaring like an animal, and it helped. Yeah, it kept me conscious, because I otherwise they probably would have had to cart me out of there. I would have went into shock. So to be able to open it through, it's energy conductivity too. I mean, before I blew out my elbow, they were doing like push-up contests and stuff with the guys at the Skies Retreat, and they got to doing the plank. And my my yoga and tantra teacher, she'd always talked about like finding your spinal line. If you can breathe through that, which is kind of opening the Kundalini channel, you can effectively hold a plank almost forever. And I kind of won the plank competition, which was kind of funny for a dude my age with a lot of yogis and stuff in the group that they were dropping. It's just, they were dropping. Breathe, but you have to find the spinal line. And that's actually the secret to a lot of deep sexual. If you want to last as long as possible, you got to be able to run the energy on exhalation and release to the spine.
Okay. My older daughter has a story about, she was a camp counselor for years, and there was a boy and a young boy and a girl that they were challenged to holding 2 gallons of milk out.
Yeah.
And the girl, the female, the woman was an Ashtanga yoga teacher.
That's it.
And she just was a rock. Just boom, And everybody was just blown away because she just wrecked this guy in the competition.
That is it. So she found her spinal line. She could open and relax. So this is like really one of the deepest secrets for ecstatic sexual lovemaking, and not having to do funky Taoist tricks with breath. You keep feeling an opening. You open your nervous system. You actively are dilating it open as parasympathetic in the midst of the most intense sympathetic sensation you can. So you can dilate open, keep breathing, and particularly feel lengthening your spine, and it just starts singing. I literally visualize white light or blue light kind of just shooting through the spinal column, and it's blissful in a weird way. Like it stops being painful. And you're conducting. I mean, that's the only way to describe it. So whether you're holding milk jugs out there, or you're holding the plank, or you're fucking, and she's just coming like a bandit, and you're just like,
just more and more. Just let it go, let it flow.
Bring it,
bring it. Just through you, just through you. Beautiful, amazing. Well, Christopher, thanks so much for being here today.
Yeah,
loved our conversation.
Likewise, it was really interesting.
I'm going to I'll put your info in the little text blocks. But what's the website for those?
Sunyata.info. SUNYATA.info.
Beautiful.
And go to click on the contact. I'll offer you a free initial session, some good leading questions to get you started if you want to know what I do. Like I said, we've got co-ed tantra workshop coming up in April, as well as a advanced men's workshop, and I do longer men's retreats in the summertime, so I'll have some details on that coming up as well.
Beautiful. So, this will be out before then. So
all right,
brother.
Well, thank you, Matt. It's been a delight.
All right. Great to see you again.
In person next time. Bye.
Peace.
Yeah, peace.